welcome. I'd like to listen first to what Angela Merkel has to say. We decided to use this room, which is bigger, so that we could have a joint press conference, because we felt that it was important to do so in order to report on the progress made by this European Council. I'm very pleased indeed to have been able to attend this discussion, this very good discussion at this first Council meeting for myself, and the fact that we were able to prepare our comments ahead of time so that we were able to speak in one voice and report together after the Council. This is something that I intend to continue doing in the future, because I believe that Germany and France must speak with one voice, and when they do so, Europe can move forward. It's not necessarily sufficient, but it is no doubt a necessary condition. We have adopted an ethics to live by, to work by, and we have a common heritage. In a few days, we will be going to the official funeral of Helmut Kohl, and indeed, the working method that he adopted, Kohl and Mitterrand, and at a given point in time, the role that Jacques Delors played, illustrate the strength of the alliance between our two countries. This joint press conference is all the more important because the European Council dealt with a number of matters of substance: immigration, terrorism, climate, etc., each time with the same conviction. Europe is our best protection vis-à-vis these worldwide threats, whether you're talking about climate change or other threats. And therefore, France and Germany work hand in hand in favor of the European goal, because it is indeed our common good. We both share our point of view on climate change. The Paris Agreement is the foundation, and we both defend it. We have made considerable progress as regards the fight against terrorism, in particular fighting against the use of terrorist propaganda online. And we have also made considerable progress as regards defense. And again, I'd like to pay tribute to the initiative taken by the President of the Commission, which we supported fully, which is to set up a European Defence Fund. Setting this up will represent significant progress for European defense, because we will be pooling our resources. We also discussed a new institutional framework, the permanent structure, which will enable all of the countries who want to take on commitments in the area of defense to move forward together. We also discussed the migration crisis. It's not just a problem for a few countries in Europe, it's a joint shared challenge. And this is something that I had the opportunity to say during the French presidential campaign. The initiative taken by Angela Merkel were very courageous, and we hope we will not have to repeat such situations. In any case, I will be at your side, because it's a common challenge and it requires a common solution. Again, today, we must continue implementing this. The crisis we're living through, the migratory crisis, is not a short-term crisis. It's a long-term crisis. And the only way we can find a solution is to stabilize the situation in Africa, in the Middle East, and to develop an ambitious European policy where our two countries will be playing a growing role in the next months and years. We will continue to welcome immigrants because it's honorable to do so. We're not talking about just any people. We're talking about men and women and children who are fleeing their countries because there's a war. They're fleeing for their own safety. We must show solidarity when one of our neighbors has to deal with a massive influx of immigrants or refugees. We must accelerate our system for dealing with refugees, and we will set up a European system, and this represents progress, and we will organize common missions in areas, in particular, to stabilize the situation in Libya, the G5 with the Sahel, and working with the countries where immigrants are in transit in order to fight against the human traffickers and find a solution in the long term. All of these issues require that Europe deal with these problems. Obviously, we sometimes have differences of opinions, but we have always been able to reach a consensus which has made the progress I've just referred to possible. It was from that point of view that we discussed social and economic protection. You know that people's ideas have evolved. We are all favorable to an open, free market economy, free trade, but free trade that applies the multilateral rules and regulations. We're going through a phase where some large powers seem to be calling into question these balances. We are definitely attached to these principles. But we're not being naive. Europe is not being naive. And that's why we felt it was important to say that we're going to defend the rules in an open and regulated world. In other words, we believe that fair competition is far better than the laws of the jungle. Therefore, we will develop anti-dumping tools, we will ensure reciprocity and better control of strategic investments. I'm going to say a word about Greece. We didn't discuss Greece today at the European Council, and I would be tempted to say that's good news. But we were very pleased, the Chancellor and myself, that we not have to discuss Greece today, because we were very pleased that the finance and economy ministers were able to deal with the matter. They have worked together in order to reach a very strong consensus and find an agreement that I am very pleased with, because it will accompany the Greek recovery and the plan set up by Alexis Tsipras. We've also discussed this topic a lot, Angela and myself. I'd also like to congratulate Donald Tusk and Claude Juncker for the organization, and also Joseph Muscat for the organization of the upcoming meeting in Malta. And I know that the meeting is organized after July 1st, will be organized effectively. And I know that we will see each other very soon in Hamburg, because Angela will be chairing the G20.
Ladies and gentlemen, we had a European Council meeting, which I think has really demonstrated a spirit of renewed confidence, and perhaps Germany and France have been able to lend a contribution to this due to the careful preparation, common preparation of this Council meeting, as others have done it. I think after the meeting of Rome, it was very clear that the work of 27 member states, as we will be in the future, should actually be given priority over the Brexit negotiations, which does not mean that we will not pursue those negotiations very intensively, but this has brought home to us how much we have to look into our own future and how to prepare our own future. And this is why this Council meeting was so important. We did the preparatory work very intensively with the French side, together with our teams, and I think think it has clearly been a result that is a very resilient one. Obviously, we will not be in agreement with each and every one and with all of the, as regards all of the issues. We have been working very intensively on all of the issues. We have given a very clear commitment to the Paris Climate Agreement. We have underlined very clearly that this is a global instrument, which in times where globalization needs to be shaped is of prime importance. But we've also underlined that with this climate agreement, we are forced to pursue technological innovation, which is of the essence for the future of the European Union. Yesterday, we talked about defense and security issues. As Emmanuel Macron has just outlined it, there is a qualitative step forward. And as I see it, particularly the future permanent structured cooperation is of prime importance, and also the creation of a European Defence Fund. And at this point in time, I would like to thank the Commission for taking this initiative. Today, we started our deliberations by Mario Draghi briefing us on the economic situation in the European Union. This, too, was a report that was looking into the future with confidence. He said that we have the lowest unemployment rates that we've enjoyed for a long time. We have 10 million new jobs that were created. So employment is very high. As Jean-Claude Juncker also underlined, very few countries are still in the deficit structure, in the deficit process. And the fact that we did not need to deal with Greece is good news, because it clearly showed that here too we have found good answers. And also as regards investments, the Juncker Fund actually has contributed to a positive development, and wherever possible we need to continue with these investments. Against this backdrop, as I see it, the Estonian presidency, after the very successful Maltese presidency, is of great importance, because Estonia is a very good case in point of how digitalization can play out in practice in the life of each and every citizen. I think that digitalization, what does this mean for our working life? What does it mean for shaping the single digital market is indeed of prime importance. And I think France and Germany will see to it that this process is speeded up, because the rest of the world is not asleep. We are very slow sometimes with our decisions. So I think the European Council can actually put down markers here, can actually enable the individual ministers to really bring decisions forward and take decisions as quickly as possible. We discussed trade at some length. I believe that in times where protectionism is at the very top of some countries' agendas, a clear commitment of the European Council to free but rules-based free trade is most important. We will conclude, hopefully very soon, an agreement on trade between the European Union and Japan, but there is also a start of new negotiations with Mexico and Mercosur. We think all of these are very important. We can benefit from that if these are to be reciprocal and also rules-based agreements. We then talked at some length today about migration. There is an agreement to a fairly large extent between Germany and France. This is about securing our external borders, but also tackling the root causes of flight. We are both of us engaged in countries in the Sahel area, and I support a mandate to second troops to the Sahel zone, a joint mandate. As you know, Germany is engaged in Mali. France is engaged in other countries there, and that is something that we need to tackle. We need to tackle the root causes of flight. We have a lot to do as regards tackling the root causes of flight. This is going to be a priority issue also on the agenda of G20, and I'm gratified to know that we have excellent cooperation here with France. On the whole, the Council dealt primarily with strengthening the foundation of the European Union and make it resilient for the future. In the beginning of this council meeting, we held a minute of silence for Helmut Kohl, and when we have this commemorative event in Strasbourg for our honorary citizen of Europe, it will bring home to us that the Schengen Agreement, freedom of movement, and the common currency need to be further deepened, need to be built on continuously. As regards freedom of movement, due to a better management of our external borders and patrolling of our our external borders. Due to the introduction of an entry-exit system, we have now launched important projects to make us stronger, and also as regards strengthening our common currency, we have made headway. But here we need to continue to talk about this, how our future can be continuously shaped. I'm looking very much forward to meeting again with Emmanuel Macron and colleagues at the G20. We will have also the Franco-German Ministerial Council before that, and this today is a council where we demonstrate that we are capable of action and that we actually can bring about results. But this is not about communiques, about statements, conclusions, but about tangible results for our people.
Alors.
Monsieur le Président, Frau Bundeskanzlerin, Markus Preis, ARD, Deutsches Fernsehen.
Sie waren erst Nummer 2 auf meiner Liste.
You were actually number 2 on my list. Mr. Brösler, I think, I can leave again. Mr. Brösler, I think, is going to pardon me. I don't know whether we should call first for a French colleague. Both of you talked about Europe needing to change, and you, President, said it actually needs to be refounded. Apart from work on all of the concrete projects that you have embarked on ever since Bratislava, do you also intend to bring about a profound change of the European Union in the sense of treaty change, and if so, during which period of time? Well, as I see it, says the Chancellor, treaty change is not an end in itself. We want to change the European Union in such a way that it is indeed capable of being resilient as regards the challenges of globalization. That is to say, that it fulfills the promise of prosperity to the citizens. That is to say, jobs. That is to say, protection against internal and external dangers, and we have to find the right ways and means to bring this about. If this is possible to do with legislative acts, why not? If greater projects are afoot, then maybe a treaty change may be necessary. It depends. I've always said a unit, a body such as the European Union that declares with the adoption of the Treaty of Lisbon, well, the whole world may change, but we will not change our treaty, will not be capable of mastering the challenges of the future. Wherever necessary, we have to do it, but it's not an end in itself.
Our purpose, I would say, is double. First of all, is to have even more unity between the peoples, because this is the European project: peace, security, prosperity on a continent which was ravaged by wars. In this respect, the decades we've gone through are unprecedented, and it is against this background that we still want each and everyone to have a better life. So we cannot accept the imbalances within the Eurozone or the European country with the rise of populism. We therefore need to bring about some concrete answers, dealing with the migration crisis, dealing on both the domestic and European reforms to make sure we have the proper economic policy for jobs, having the right cultural and education policies, etc. The second goal or purpose, of course, is to, in the context of these changes and these changes in the world, to protect Europe. This is the initial pact. So today, nowadays, within the context of the treaties framework, we've set a number of benchmarks, and we will continue to work together indeed to go forward, to do more in both directions that we share, and we therefore need to work together on a roadmap in order to identify the necessary changes. We will then share it with as many partners as possible and try and convince them. And I fully agree with what Angela just said. If at some point in time we need to amend the treaties, then it will be logic to do so. It's neither a purpose nor a taboo.
Bonjour. Bonjour, Monsieur le Président, Madame la Chancelière, Jean-Baptiste.
Mr. President, Madam Chancellor, a question from Reuters regarding the strengthening or more detailed regarding the work by France and Germany. When are you going to make any announcement on the occasion of the G20? And what about the roadmap? Is it going to be presented before or after the German elections? On this topic, First of all, we're working together, as we've and we've shown it before and today. And I think it's always better to show concrete results rather than make some huge announcements and then put some pressure we cannot cope with. So my willingness is that we achieve as much progress as possible regarding what will be happening at the G20. I'll leave it to Chancellor Merkel to answer that question, but there are many major topics on the agenda of the G20 relevant to both our countries and on which we strongly see eye to eye. We will also hold a Franco-German Council of Ministers on the 13th of July, and allow me to thank Chancellor Merkel for accepting to hold this council in Paris rather than in Germany, because given the date, this was very elegant of her. And I also think that on this occasion we can do more on defense matters, security matters, probably on education as well. Then, well, we're working, and once we have something robust, we'll make it public. I think it's more important to, first of all, have some sort of intimacy, work together, and then once things are ready, decide to go public. Whereas if we do it the other way around, you will somehow be expecting and checking whether we are matching the deadline or not. And we're going to work on a roadmap for the next 10 years, and I have in mind that for many years we were not able to agree upon a roadmap. So we'll allow ourselves enough time to do it right. But on migration, defense, security, trade matters, the fight against terrorism as well, and topics of cooperation in education and culture, I'm sure we will achieve some major breakthrough.
As regards the methodology, I see it absolutely the same way. We shouldn't announce something that we then later on cannot fulfill. We are preparing the 13th of July very carefully, and I think that for both countries, it's most important to secure jobs, if I may add that, or to create favorable framework conditions for jobs to be created. Digitalization is of central importance for both our countries in this respect. In his previous position as Minister of Economics, Emmanuel Macron did a lot to render France a very attractive location for startup companies, and we've done our bit to assure this. I think what's going to be important now is that we can actually be champions. We can lead the way as regards the completion of the single digital market, because the jobs of the future will not arise out of the industries that have gone down, the industries of the past, that is, but out of the industries of the future. I think that this is the most important point. On G20, I think there are a number of areas where we are in agreement. Paris Agreement, for example, the issues of peace and trade and partnership with Africa. We all know that in Africa we have not yet been able to trigger off a development that there is economic upswing that is able to withstand the shocks. And in this compact with Africa, we want to encourage the Africans to also bring their own issues to the agenda, and we want to work together with them. And the rest of it will then be discussed during the G20 summit meeting, so you will have an opportunity to ask questions then. Now, Mr. Brüssler. Mr. Brüssler from Süddeutsche Zeitung. Madam Chancellor, Mr. President, your joint press conference in many ways is symbolic. So do you think that you will be able to build on sort of historic models, or do you think that looking at the size of the European Union, there may well be resistance against France and Germany together leading the way, for example, in Central Europe? And do you see the necessity of including other member states in this leadership group? Well, it is true that this press conference is to demonstrate that we are resolved to contribute together to the possibilities of finding solutions to the great answers of our time. This only means that we want to work together. It doesn't mean that we exclude others from close cooperation. Obviously, things have changed ever since the European Union had only 6 members, then maybe 13 members. This, to us, seems to be a rather smallish group by comparison. Now we're 27, but we have developed a methodology for our work where we can, for example, split up in the sense that we talk to one group or somebody else talks to another group and try to bring about alliances and forge alliances in the interest of certain issues. Politicians, after all, have the task to look at the issues that are on the table, to bring them to a sensible solution, and also to one that is sustainable, not to sham solutions, but to solutions that are actually will be durable and lasting. This is, I think, something that spurs the two of us on, and there are enough people who are studying history as of now and who can then later on, once we are recorded in history books, judge our roles. But the question is, what is our role? What is, that's something that we discussed yesterday when we discussed foreign policy issues. What is the role of the European Union at a time where the balance of forces is shifting? And we all see this. There is a global shift here. And how do we want to be seen and perceived, and what sort of contribution do we want to give? And as I see it, globalization is something where we want to bring about win-win solutions. Solutions where Europe wins, but others too. I don't believe that you invariably have to have situations where one loses and one wins and somebody else loses. I think this common approach of how to shape globalization is what spurs us on, and we're trying to enlist the support of others also globally.
Je partage tout ce qui a été dit.
I fully agree with what has been said, and I know something. When France and Germany do not agree, Europe is not moving forward. So, of course, there can be some short-term victory with one or another, trying to get to obtain victory late at night or early in the morning, but it doesn't work. So, the genuine agreement between France and Germany is a condition to move progress. Like I said, it's not a sufficient prerequisite, but it is a prerequisite. We therefore need to make sure that both of us talk to all of our partners, and as we've done over the past few days, we had many bilateral meetings with others. But we need this close cooperation. We're not facing the same difficulty, the same situations economically in terms of demography, politically as well. So on some topic, one or another, there can be some major differences. But it's important, first of all, that we understand each other's situations and constraints, work on bridging gaps, if any, and then work together on building some joint solutions. Because there is no relevant European solution unless it is first and foremost relevant to France and Germany. Of course, there are some differences between the two countries, but there are much bigger differences if we open up the circle. So these are many reasons why we shall continue to work together. And it is about facing up to our recent history, that of the past few decades, and the only method that matches the current challenges. Because we are living through times when the existing threats, the major changes, and the level of doubt within our own democracies, that this is the only way to face up to our responsibilities.
Merci.
Thank you. Sir, you implemented differentiated diplomacy on the occasion of this Council, given that you told us that together with Mrs. Merkel, you didn't want to express in public any disagreement you may have, whereas when it comes to other countries, Poland, Hungary, you did not hesitate, being rather straight and blaming a number of countries for turning their back to European values. You said it, I think, in an interview. So what about this differentiated diplomacy? Do you think that some countries are not enough in favor of compromises? And what about this meeting you held this morning? Is there the agreement on posted workers? Next question for Madam Chancellor. Madam, for many years, France and Germany lost a lot of time on the 2%, on growth, on reforms, all of these topics. Do you feel that today, first of all, there's potentially there's room for a new chapter, a new step with the president? And second, do you think that France will meet the targets, economic targets? And thirdly, what about Hungary and other countries which are in breach of European values? First of all, I did not say that I would not speak openly about any disagreement between France and Germany. I said that on 95% of topics we agreed and that we were working on the others as well. So there's no hidden agenda, or let me be very clear about it, between France and Germany. Next, as to what I may have said about other countries, I took stock of what the European Commission did a couple of days ago. The European Commission is launching sanctions. When some countries, when it comes to migrations with values, reach decisions which are not in compliance with the rules, and when there are reasons for opening sanctioned procedures, well, we shall acknowledge it. And that being said, what I say in public, I always said it in private before. What one should not do is speak publicly before doing it in private. But once you've said it in private, well, it's fair to say the same in public. And I cannot say today that I would be fully satisfied if the European Union would accept any breach of its values and principles. This is my position, and I will continue with the same methodology. Straightforward and open bilateral expression, and then the same in public. But of course, we can still work together with everyone. And this morning I met with the countries of the Visegrad Group, and we've identified a number of topics on which there are some disagreements. We'll continue to work on these in order, in particular, to share the difficulties or the constraints of each country. And there are topics on which I want to achieve progress together. The posted workers is one of these topics. Like I said, I believe that we have to strongly reconsider the current balance or imbalances. We did a great deal of work together with Germany on this topic, and I talked about it with a number of European partners, like I did this morning, and I will continue to work with everyone. We're all sitting around the table, and we can very much face up to some major disagreements. We have to be clear when it comes to our values and continue to work on our agenda in order to move forward and reduce these disagreements or discrepancies.
First of all, I think one shouldn't forget, and that's what the Charter of Basic Rights of the European Union shows, is that the European Union rests on a community of shared values. And wherever we have concerns, the Commission has legitimate reason and is also duty-bound by our treaties to call a spade, and to also mention that they see these concerns, that there is an infringement of our rules, and I absolutely agree with this methodology. First of all, you talk to one another before you speak in public about one another. There may well be issues where France or Germany may need a little bit longer to find a common position in the European Council. We can, at any rate, only take decisions unanimously, which is a characteristic feat of our cooperation in the Council. But our community of shared values, I think, is most important. As regards the Stability and Growth Pact, the Stability and Growth Pact is is part of the legal body of the European Union. The Germans have not invented this. The Commission has very clear responsibilities here. It's talking to individual member states, as the case may be. So we don't need to look into that in the Franco-German cooperation. What's important to me, and I believe what is important to both of us, is that particularly as regards this issue, we have to look at what are the problems of the future. What do we have to do to create more jobs for people? What do we have to do to create more confidence among our citizens in Europe? So that and what can we do in order not to shift everything that we cannot solve back home to Brussels and blame them and say Brussels is to blame? How we talk about the European Union is how it is, because we're part of the European Union. And then also we have to set the right priorities. I mean, just think of all of the technical rules we have. Sometimes we don't see the forest for the trees simply because we're only looking at each individual tree and lose sight of what's happening in the world around us. So I think this council was very important because it helped us to look a little bit ahead and look around us and see where do we want to create security and safety and more jobs. Thomas Lading from the German press agency. Madam Chancellor, first a question directed to you on migration. You mentioned migration as an issue and also the accord that there is on this issue between France and Germany. But what about the discussion with the other countries? You're aware of what countries I mean. Have you made any progress about which you can brief us? And a question directed to the President. In Germany, there has been actually also criticism of a possible lack of solidarity shown by France on the migration issue. Do you want to change tack on this as compared to the previous government? Well, says the Chancellor, there is continuous progress as regards tackling the root causes of flight and also as regards securing the external borders. We are very much in agreement on what needs to be done here. Unfortunately, we have no progress on the questions of distribution within the European Union. We need to continue to address this issue. It's a very important one, also a very important part of solidarity that needs to be shown among European member countries, but we have not really concentrated on this too much today because we knew that there would not be progress achieved today. But allow me to point out the fact that because this regards the Baltic states, but also the Estonian presidency, with all of these very difficult challenges that the Central and Eastern European countries have to see and have to weather, there is a basic solidarity still, and we hope that we will be able to enlarge this to all of the new members. And I will certainly not relent in my efforts to address this issue, to talk about it, because my idea of Europe is one where I say, when we sit around one table, when we have common external borders, I also have to put myself in the shoes of a Greek prime minister, of those of an Italian prime minister, who every day receives on his shores migrants and refugees, and asks them, well, how do you envisage Europe? I mean, I cannot only be happy about the fact that I'm in the middle of Europe and do not have this problem of having refugees come to my shore, but trying to put yourself into the shoes of others, I think that's very important. It's an exercise that I think we all ought to do in order to then find a spirit of compromise.
C'est un très bon exemple.
It is an excellent example of the constant need to find the right balance between efficiency and responsibility, and sometimes there is a lack of balance regarding economic matters as well as migration, because on each of these topics, and so we had some unbalance. Some countries were impacted by the economic and social crisis. Did we stand in solidarity with these countries? I'm not sure we did. This is the reason why we have to do more when it comes to the Eurozone, the economic matters. We need to do more because we need strong responsibility, and there was some doubt that prevented us from implementing all of that. Then migration. The first impacted were the countries of entry. We did not listen to Italy from the early days when Italy was announcing the wave of migrants coming. Then the impact was on Italy and Greece, and then on the countries which hosted the largest numbers of migrants. Why? And let me be frank, it is because they were countries which were doing well with a low level of unemployment. The migrants, the refugees, therefore considered they had a future in these countries. And I find no glory in the fact that France was not so attractive in this respect. It is because we have a 10% unemployment rate, and let me be clear about it. Then, as from that point in time, there is a lack of European solidarity in order to share the burden. So what are we working on today, and what should be we working on? What is genuine solidarity and genuine solidarity about? Responsibility about? It is about having some joint rules to deal with asylum and managing these flows. These refugees are risking their lives. We have to deal with the Balkan route and the Libyan route. It is about having some joint policies with the third countries, countries of origin, countries of transit. Let us not allow families to put their life at risk while they have no chance of getting permission to stay. We can work on managing the borders of these countries. We also need to prevent shopping of a number of people who are somehow forum shopping in Europe, and that will also require a genuine control at borders, as acknowledged by the conclusions of this European Council. Solidarity, therefore, requires a policy on migration, managing the border, asylum, a much stronger policy on all of this, and together with the Chancellor, I hope we can achieve progress on this in the coming steps, and I therefore ask our government to work on a strong reform of asylum, because the French system does not work. It takes too much time to rule on applications, and we end up with inhuman and inefficient situations. Then it is a matter of genuine solidarity vis-à-vis countries which are in a state of crisis. We therefore need a European policy in terms of development. We need to have more initiatives, if not at the European level, between France and Germany, in Africa, in the Maghreb, in the Near and the Middle East as well, to provide local development and work to prevent these situations.
Bonjour.
Good afternoon. A question from the Financial Times to the German Chancellor. During the campaign of Emmanuel Macron, he talked about a Buy European Act in order to match some similar initiatives in India and in China as well as the US. What do you think of these? And then are you satisfied with Theresa May's initial proposals regarding European citizens who live in Britain?
I think that we have actually talked at great length about trade issues, and concerning the brief period that the President is in office already very much and very intensively. If there is a tender, for example, if we have access to public procurement, for example, in the United States of America, then we can also offer public tenders and access to public procurement here in Europe. But if we see that we do not have full access to tender procedures over there, then we have to look for certain measures to answer that. So this is why in the individual trade regimes, we have reflected on ways and means how to more effectively and more efficiently shape anti-dumping rules. And this, to me, falls under the heading of reciprocity. I think in the presidential campaign, after all, as far as I collect, that loomed large on the agenda. And what the second question, I'm afraid... Oh, yes, I remember. Well, Yesterday, this was a very first and still fairly simple discussion that after 5 years of residence, people who live in the United Kingdom are given a legal means of staying on. That was a good beginning, but it was to, and I'm trying to word this very carefully, it was not a breakthrough. We have said we want to pursue this matter in a good cooperation, but I think what has come out yesterday was also that we still have a long way to go yet. We will prepare this very carefully together with France. We don't want a wedge to be driven between us, but we want to really make our interests very clear. And if there is no guarantee for the 4 freedoms, then this exercise will have to lead to a situation where it has certain effects on the future relationship between the United Kingdom and the 27 member states. And as far as we've understood the British side, there will not be the 4 freedoms, and we will politically have to have a debate on this and have to find common solutions together with France.
I fully agree upon what was said about the British position. And as to the method, of course, I expect some close cooperation between our 2 countries and a joint approach regarding the Brexit. A mandate has been given to Michel Barnier. He's leading the discussion. He will have to consider the proposals made, and it will be for him to pave the way. And I think this is a good method because, like you've seen since the beginning of this press conference, we already have a great deal to deal with all of the challenges in Europe, and this is the reason why we're mainly talking about the future and construction. Thank you ever so much. Thank you.